Good morning and welcome, fellow hoops heads. This is another episode of the Last Shot NBA show hosted by me. I am Nick Metallinos and proudly brought to you by our good friends at topsport.com.au. Whew, we have a lot to talk about. The NBA news cycle never ends. And we've got our good friend of the show, BK. Actually, I can call you good friend of the show now, can't I? Because you're going to be appearing on here pretty regularly. It is our good friend of the show, Benyam Kidane from NBA Australia. How you doing, mate?
I'm good, my man. Always a pleasure to be here. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Cold. Melbourne's pretty cold this morning, mate. So it is what it is, though.
Standard.
Yes, I see you've got the Iverson jersey in the background there. Iverson, another Philly legend that's beloved by everyone in the city at the moment, unlike somebody else.
In honor of AI making the NBA 75, got to show him some love. You know, that's my guy.
Absolutely, that's my guy as well. And I like that you mentioned the NBA 75 because we've got a lot of things to talk about this morning. That is one of the things we are going to be talking about, the NBA's 75th anniversary team. They named the 75 best players of all time. Now, BK, there was a lot of the usual faces on there, you know, your Michael Jordans, your Kobe Bryants, Shaq, all that sort of stuff. There was 11 active players on the list. They were Giannis, Carmelo, Steph Curry, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, James Harden, LeBron James, Kawhi, Damian Lillard, Chris Paul, and Russell Westbrook. There was a few notables that were off the list. There was only two Europeans named, Dirk Nowitzki, Giannis Antetokounmpo. No Tony Parker. I thought he might have got a bit of a sniff on there. But some of the biggest, omissions, I guess, for me anyway, was no Vince Carter, no Tracy McGrady, and no Dwight Howard. BK, looking at that list, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think, there's a few guys just on the periphery that probably could feel like they deserve to be on that list. And as you mentioned, some of the international guys, whether it's Pau Gasol, Yao Ming, and even a guy like Manu Ginobili, could definitely make an argument to be in there. Dikembe Mutombo is another guy I thought was unlucky with 4 Defensive Player of the Year trophies to not make that list. But that's what lists are about. There's always going to be someone or a few people that miss out. And what I found interesting was that they kept the original 50. So really, this was a top 25 players from the last 25 years list.
Yeah, it was actually. I actually saw a funny tweet yesterday. I can't remember who posted it, but it showed footage from a game from, I guess it was the 50s, the first year or something, and just these dudes running around, and somebody was like, every single player in this video made the NBA's 75th anniversary, yeah, which was hilarious to me. But, let's have a look at the omissions. For you, which was the most glaring one?
For me, it was Tracy McGrady. I know injuries kind of derailed his career, but his peak, I think you can put up against anybody's peak. Still a 7-time All-Star, 7-time All-NBA, scoring leader. He was right there at the very top of the game. And for me, I think, when we talk about who is the greatest players, you're not telling me a lot of these guys on this list are greater or better at hoops than Tracy McGrady. For me, that was the one that I was kind of like, after Dwight Howard, of course, but Tracy McGrady was the other guy. I was like, I just assumed he was going to be on that list.
No, absolutely. I mean, peak McGrady, Raptors McGrady, Orlando Magic McGrady was just like out of this world. So that was definitely, that's you bring up some good points there. You mentioned Dwight Howard. For me, that was the biggest omission, Dwight Howard. I was tossing up on this one here because I was like, who do I take out for Dwight Howard? And the first one that came to mind was Russell Westbrook, right? And I'll give you my reasons. I was like, I just don't like the guy. I don't like his game. I'm not really a big fan of Russell Westbrook.
We got a hater here.
Well, kind of. So I was like, but then I had a look at the list, and then I had a look at Dame Lillard being on that list. And I had to go with Dame Lillard to take him off. And don't get me wrong, I like Dame. He's a great guy. Always had some time for me, in the NBA, and answered all my questions and all that sort of stuff. But when you look at Dwight Howard, right, and especially his first 9 years in the league, okay, he ended up becoming an NBA champion later on with the Lakers. But first 9 years in the league, 8-time All-Star, 5-time All-NBA first team, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, 5-time rebounding leader, 2-time blocks leader, and an NBA slam dunk champion, right? You look at Dame Lillard's CV, 6-time All-Star, Rookie of the Year, fair enough, and 1 All-NBA team. As far as team achievements, the Blazers have made the conference finals just once. Like I said, I like Lillard, but how do you leave him? How do you leave Howard off for Lillard? I just don't get it.
Yeah, when you put Dwight's resume up against pretty much anybody, he's in the 75. And it was interesting because we saw in the top 50 team in '96, they had some picks that were like projecting ahead. Shaquille O'Neal was only in his second, third season,
That's right.
and he made the list. So I was intrigued to see if any of these guys would kind of make it in, whether it's a Luka Doncic and, in 5 years' time, are we going to be proved right? I thought that might have been the case with Anthony Davis because whilst he hasn't achieved as much as Dwight Howard, he's very much on track to kind of do very similar things in terms of, potentially defensive player of the years, obviously won a title and all the other accolades that he has. So that was the thing I was kind of not expecting. I mean, I was expecting maybe one or two of those picks. So I don't know whether Damian Lillard and Anthony Davis maybe fall into that category. They're not necessarily on the younger side like Shaq was. They're both, north of 27. But this debate, I don't think is going to die down because guys rightly will be annoyed that they missed out.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, for me, it's Dwight Howard. I think a lot of people look at Dwight sort of post that back injury and, once he got to the Lakers for that first stint and, onwards from there. And they kind of forget that he was a really awesome player, before he got injured. So I think that maybe have been a factor. Who knows? But like you said, these lists are great for content. It gives us something to talk about on a Monday morning. So we'll see. We'll see over the next 25 years. I'm sure they're going to do a best 100 players, and we'll see which of the current generation, like you mentioned, Luka Doncic and these kind of guys, or Trae Young, or Ja Morant, whoever it may be. We'll see if these guys end up making the lists in 25 years' time. BK, few games on yesterday, few games on today. Let's talk about some game action. Yesterday, I actually ended up watching the Grizzlies play the Los Angeles Clippers. Now, that was a fun game. Did you watch that game by any chance?
Yeah. My man, Jaren Jackson Jr. coming up big time.
Yeah, speaking of him and Ja Morant, I think the Memphis Grizzlies got a couple of nice little cornerstones for the future in those two players. Really exciting. I like the Grizzlies. I do want to talk about the LA Clippers a little bit, though. They lost yesterday. They're 0-2, first 0-2 start since the 2002 and 2003 season. Paul George was absolutely phenomenal. 41 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. Is he a one-man show for the Clippers this season?
Unfortunately, yes, because this team was built around, we've got Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, and we're going to fill it out accordingly. So when you take out, 25, 30 points a night from Kawhi Leonard, plus what he brings on the defensive end, you're going to have to try and find that in other guys. And I don't necessarily think the Clippers have those guys. I mean, Eric Bledsoe has been a surprisingly good fit to start the season. I wasn't high on that move for the Clippers, but when you've got a guy like PG who's averaging 35 through the first couple of games, it's who's going to be the next guy. Is it going to be Reggie Jackson? Is it going to be Eric Bledsoe? Is Terrence Mann the guy that's going to come in and fill that offensive gap that Kawhi Leonard leaves? So I think we're going to see a lot of games like this for the Clippers, in the first half of the season where PG goes crazy and then the next person on his team scores 12, 13 points. So I don't know if that's necessarily going to be enough to keep them afloat until Kawhi Leonard gets back.
And that's the question, though. Like, when does he get back? Will we see him this season? Is he going to come, late into the season? Is the chemistry going to be there? We'll have to wait and see what happens with that. But you mentioned who's going to step up and sort of, fill that offensive void. Based off yesterday's game, old mate Hardenstein, he showed me some game yesterday.
And he's hyped 24/7. This guy is, he's bounced around a little bit, been in the G League. So getting an opportunity to play on this team, especially because their big man rotation isn't amazing. You've got Morris, Zubac, who, can be a little bit hot and cold. So if you're grabbing rebounds and running the floor and finishing at the rim, like, you'll be able to stay on the floor for this Clippers team.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, that Kawhi injury really sucks for them because, coming into this season, like last season, they showed me something. They won 2 playoff series coming back from, 0-2 down. Obviously, Kawhi gets injured, and I think that really cost them last season. But they showed me that they can fight because obviously they've had that history of, choking and not making it, never made a conference finals before. So I really think that Kawhi injury this season is going to hurt them. Paul George is still elite. I don't care what social media tells me. He's still elite on both ends of the floor. But yeah, I don't see them having enough over over an 82 game season to really challenge in the West, which again, it's a shame because they showed me something last year. So I would have liked to see them progress on from that.
I'm with you 100% on Paul George. Don't let the timeline fool you. He is still one of the best players in the league on both ends. And we're seeing that, well, we saw it in the postseason last year. They would have got bounced out quick if it wasn't for Paul George playing at the level that he was at. And he's doing it again so far for them this season.
Yeah, facts. Like you said, don't let the timeline fool you. People got to get these jokes off and get the memes off. But man, Paul George is an absolute baller. Another team in the West I want to talk about, BK, the Phoenix Suns. Now, they beat the Lakers the other day, lost big to Portland yesterday on the second night of a back-to-back. I like this Suns team, though. I like this Suns team. And when you look at the rest of the Western Conference, should they be the favorites coming out of the West?
I mean, probably. They've brought back much the same team that went to the NBA Finals last season. I really like the pickup of JaVale McGee, because that was probably one of their glaring issues last season, was that a bit of an over-reliance on DeAndre Ayton at the 5. So now you have another rim-running big who can set screens, finish in the paint. I really like that addition of JaVale McGee. I think the Suns will still be one of the best teams in the league this season. They've had a pretty tough schedule with 3 games in 4 days against the Nuggets, Blazers, and Lakers, but their defense doesn't quite seem to be in tune as much as it was last season. And I know it's only 3 games. Is that a concern for you?
Not yet. Like you said, it's only been 3 games. So we'll see how it plays out. I mean, if we get to the halfway point of the season and it's still kind of, shaky, yeah, it is a concern. But I will say, I think that's the first time ever I've heard I like the acquisition of JaVale McGee. I don't think I've ever...
Sorry, I misspoke. I like the acquisition of gold medalist JaVale McGee. Gold medal winner. Put some respect on that man's name.
I will not, actually. I will not. I'm just kidding. We'll see. But, like I said, I'm not convinced on the Lakers. Denver, no, I don't, I'm not convinced on them either. I don't think Utah has enough to get through. So, yeah, I might have to go with the Suns as the current fate. Look, it's only 3 games, 2-3 games into the season. Let's not overreact or anything like that. But I do like this Phoenix Suns team. What I don't like at the moment, smooth transition, is the team that they beat the other day, the Los Angeles Lakers. BK, that game, the body language from the Lakers was poor. They clearly have not figured it out. LeBron James, I think it was in the 3rd quarter, makes a block on Cameron Johnson and then stayed in the backcourt for the rest of the play while his teammates were sort of scrambling in the front court trying to get a bucket. What do you make of the Lakers? Obviously, there was the AD and Dwight, little flare up on the bench. What do you make of the Lakers' chemistry so far?
What chemistry? They look all over the place at the moment. Initially, I was a fan of the Russell Westbrook move, not necessarily because it meant they were going to win a championship. I just really wanted to see Russ playing in LA with these guys. And I backed LeBron, of all people, to figure out how to make this work. But the early returns, watching the 3 of them try and coexist on the floor together, it really makes you wonder what a Buddy Hield trade would have looked like for the Lakers. Because as much as Russell Westbrook can control the ball and do his thing, if you're the Lakers, you want LeBron doing that. So it's tough for them to try and sort of get through that. And they don't look like they're enjoying things to start the season. They haven't been playing well. They haven't been defending well. They haven't been shooting well. But as you said, 3 games in is a great time for a overreaction. I think they'll be okay. I think they'll figure it out. But once they start to get a few wins on the board and things kind of turn around, you'll see that attitude kind of shift. But maybe you kind of need that early in the season, because you can't just dump talent on the floor and expect to win. We've seen that in years and teams past in the NBA. You have to figure it out. But I'm still confident they will.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Lakers should know that firsthand. What was it, 2003 and 4, where they brought in Karl Malone and Gary Payton, and you got all these guys, and it just wasn't. Look, but in saying that, they were one Karl Malone injury from probably winning it all again that season. But you can't just dump talent on the floor and hope to win. And like you said, I do think that they've got enough talent and enough veteran guys on there that they will figure it out. And I still believe they're going to win close to 55 games or so for the season. It is a long season, so we're not going to overreact for 2-3 games. But listen, I'm looking at my guy Melo, and he must be thinking to himself, "Man, I should have gone back to New York for a farewell tour."
Can't go out like this.
I can't go out like
but
this.
if he wins a ring, that's the storybook ending I need for Melo.
Yeah, well, if he wins a ring, I tell you what, then go back to New York and finish out one more season there.
Yeah.
The king of NY, and then call it a day. Look, BK. That's all we've got time for today, unfortunately. We're just a quick show, just going to, get those topics out. Before we go, we're going to take a look at today's games. We've got the Thunder at 76ers. Obviously, old mate Josh Giddey is playing there. What do you reckon? The Thunder get a win or the 76ers?
I got to go with the 76ers. This Thunder team is bad.
They are.
They're very young and they're supposed to be bad, but it's all about development for them. So I got to roll with the 76ers.
Yeah, they're messing up Josh Giddey's assist numbers, man. Those guys.
he could have double the amount of assists he's had this season. So many nice plays are going unfinished.
They cannot finish. The other game today is the Lakers at the Grizzlies. Grizzlies second night of a back-to-back. Do the Lakers get their first win, or do the Grizzlies get their second in a row?
Man, the Grizzlies look good, and I don't think second night of a back-to-back matters for these guys. They're young, they're fresh, they're hyped, they're ready to go. I really like this Grizzlies team. Jaren Jackson Jr. was, one of my picks for most improved player of the season this year. He makes such a big difference to that team, and Ja Morant has quietly been one of the best players through the first week of this season.
I am with you, man. He's been incredible. Like, I really enjoyed watching the Grizzlies play yesterday. So I don't know. I actually think the Grizzlies also win today. Like you said, they're just young. They're exciting. I like the way they play. Yeah, I think the Lakers are going to be 0-3 to start this season. All right, BK, that's all we've got time for. Thank you very much once again for joining us. I'm pretty sure you'll be back on Friday, hopefully, if you've got some time.
Always.
This has been the Last Shot NBA podcast, brought to you by our good friends at topsport.com.au. Now, please like the video, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell to make sure you stay up to date with all our videos. We will be going live on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Friday morning at 9 a.m., and we'll see you next time.